Good evening. Saint Francis of Assisi is remembered as a man who never turned away the broken. A saint who welcomed lepers, beggars, enemies, and sinners without hesitation. A man whose door was always open. That is why what happened on this particular night unsettled everyone who witnessed it. Because for the first time, Francis did not rush forward. He did not intervene. He did not pursue. He watched a man walk away from mercy. And he let him go. The man's name was Pietro. The brothers knew him well. He had been coming to the monastery for years, always near sunset, always alone. His clothes were worn but not poor. His speech was polished, even charming when he wished it to be. He was not violent. He was not scandalous. He was something far more troubling. He was unchanged. Each time he arrived, he confessed the same sins: dishonesty in trade, cruelty of speech, indulgence of the flesh, resentment toward God. Each time, he wept just enough to appear sincere. And each time, he returned weeks later, exactly the same. The brothers whispered quietly. He loves absolution. But he hates discipline. He wants relief, not conversion. Yet Francis always listened. Until this night. When Pietro knelt before Francis, his words came quickly, as if memorized. "I have failed again," he said. "I am weak. I am ashamed." Francis listened without interruption. When Pietro finished, he lifted his eyes, waiting for the familiar comfort. But Francis did not speak. The silence stretched. Pietro shifted uneasily. Finally, Francis asked a single question. "Tell me, Pietro. When you leave this place, what will you do differently?" Pietro opened his mouth, then closed it. The answer did not come. Francis leaned forward slightly. "Do you want to be free?" he asked gently. "Or do you only want peace for tonight?" The question pierced deeper than Pietro expected. His voice sharpened. "What difference does it make? Is forgiveness not forgiveness?" Francis lowered his eyes. "Forgiveness is a door," he said softly. "But you must choose to walk through it." Francis did something he had never done before. He did not raise his hand in absolution. He did not pronounce judgment. He simply said, "Go." Pietro froze. "You will not absolve me?" Francis answered calmly. "I cannot speak words that would teach your soul a lie." Anger flared. "So you refuse me mercy?" Francis shook his head. "No. I refuse to pretend that mercy has already done its work." Pietro stood abruptly. "You are no different than the rest," he spat. "You judge while pretending not to." Francis did not reply. Pietro stormed out of the monastery as the sun dipped below the hills. Brother Leo rushed toward Francis, shaken. "Father," he whispered, "why did you let him go?" Francis answered quietly. "Because stopping him would have spared him pain. But not saved his soul." Francis gathered the brothers that night. He spoke with gravity. "A wound that is constantly soothed never heals," he said. "A conscience that is never disturbed grows numb." He explained what they struggled to accept. Mercy without truth becomes permission. Forgiveness without desire becomes poison. "He comes here," Francis said, "to feel forgiven, not to be transformed." Francis did not sleep. He prayed, not for Pietro's comfort, but for his awakening. "Lord," he whispered, "do not let him mistake your patience for approval." He asked God to allow Pietro to feel the weight of his choices. Not as punishment, but as clarity. Just before dawn, footsteps echoed outside the monastery. Pietro returned. Not confident. Not rehearsed. Shaking. He fell to his knees without speaking. Francis waited. At last, Pietro whispered. "I am afraid." Francis asked softly. "Of what?" "That I will lose everything. And still not change." Francis answered. "That fear is the beginning of wisdom." This time, Pietro did not rush. He spoke slowly, painfully. He confessed not only his sins, but his love of sin. Not only his failures, but his resistance to discipline. Not only his weakness, but his pride. Francis listened. When Pietro finished, Francis asked, "What do you want now?" Pietro whispered. "To be different, even if it hurts." Francis wept. And then he raised his hand. This story unsettles us because it challenges a belief we rarely question. We like to think mercy always looks like immediate comfort. Immediate reassurance. Immediate relief. But Saint Francis understood something deeper, and more difficult. That mercy, when offered too cheaply, can become a lie. The man in this story was not rejected because he sinned. He was not turned away because he failed. He was allowed to walk away because he refused to change. And there is a painful difference. Francis did not withhold mercy out of hardness. He withheld it out of love, a love strong enough to risk misunderstanding, anger, and loss. This is not the kind of love we celebrate easily. It is the kind of love that waits in silence while someone storms away. The kind of love that prays while someone resents it. The kind of love that believes God is still at work even when appearances suggest failure. Most of us are uncomfortable with this. Because we want mercy to feel gentle. We want it to feel safe. We want it to never disturb us. But the mercy that heals the deepest wounds often arrives as discomfort. Saint Francis understood that forgiveness is not magic. It does not bypass freedom. It does not erase responsibility. Forgiveness opens a door, but it does not drag anyone through it. And this is where the story turns back toward us. Because many of us resemble Pietro more than we would like to admit. We return to God often. We confess familiar sins. We feel temporary relief. But we quietly resist the changes that would cost us comfort, habit, or control. We want peace, but not transformation. We want forgiveness, but not surrender. Francis recognized this danger not with anger, but with clarity. He knew that absolution without intention becomes anesthetic. It dulls the soul instead of healing it. And so, he waited. Not because he had stopped loving the man. But because he loved him too much to lie to him. This kind of mercy requires courage. It risks being misunderstood as cruelty. It risks being labeled judgment. It risks losing someone entirely. Yet Francis trusted something greater than his own need to be liked. He trusted that God works not only through comfort, but through longing. That sometimes the ache of distance awakens a soul more powerfully than immediate reassurance ever could. When Pietro returned, trembling, afraid, stripped of confidence, that fear was not failure. It was honesty. And honesty is where grace finally enters. This story leaves us with a difficult question. How often do we confuse love with appeasement? How often do we offer comfort when what is needed is truth? How often do we rush to relieve pain that God may be using to heal? Saint Francis did not believe suffering was good. But he believed growth was necessary. And sometimes growth begins only when comfort ends. There is also another, quieter lesson here. Francis waited, but he never stopped praying. He allowed distance, but he did not withdraw love.